Okay, in this video I'm going to talk about what I call the joining commas. The joining commas come after an introductory fragment, or with a coordinating conjunction, or with transitions. Quick review of clauses is there are two types. There are the dependent clause, and here we're talking about because she trusted him, and an independent clause, he held her with steady arms. The independent clause is a clause that can stand alone. Now we're going to talk about three types of introductory fragments. The first type is a subordinate clause. Now a subordinate clause is an independent clause, or dependent clause. So a subordinate clause and a dependent clause are the same thing. So in this sentence, because she trusted him, this is a dependent clause or a subordinate clause. We can also see when we use coordination that we have the subordinate clause coming before the independent clause after the and joins it to another independent clause. Some coordinating conjunctions or subordinators are although, even though, though, while, whereas, before, after, as, because, since, if, unless, until, and where. Okay, now that we've talked about subordinate clauses, let's look at prepositional phrases, the second type of introductory fragment. From the dark, the dancer emerges. From the dark is a prepositional phrase. Some, but not all of the prepositions are above, besides, between, by, during, for, in, into, near, of, on, unto, over, since, through, and toward. Okay, we've talked about the prepositional phrases. Let's talk about participle phrases for a minute here. Participle phrase begins with a present participle, which is usually an ing word, or a past participle, which was the past participle form of the verb. So here's a present participle. Hiding a smile, she watched him try to rollerblade. Here's a past participle. Rested from her first performance, she's ready for her next routine. Okay, now let's remember a couple of things. First, the introductory fragment and the comma come before the independent clause. Second, subordinating conjunctions, subordinators, participles, and prepositions can begin introductory fragments, but we don't put a comma after those words. We put a comma after the clause or phrase. A couple of interesting points. If there's no subject after the introductory fragment might be the subject of the sentence. So practicing every evening and weekend is the subject of enable them to win the first prize in a dance contest, where practicing is a gerund instead of a participle. Another interesting point is the subject may come after the verb, as when a prepositional phrase beside the dancers comes before the verb, and a man as the subject comes after the verb. Okay, now that we've talked about introductory fragments, let's talk about coordinating conjunctions, or the CD comma. So in the CD comma, we join my father only likes to dance slow dances, an independent clause. We join it with a comma and a coordinating conjunction to my mother likes to dance any kind of dance, another independent clause. So what do we need? We need two independent clauses. We need a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunctions, we use the memory aid of fanboys are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. In this case, the comma comes before the coordinating conjunction. As in this sentence, notice that the comma comes before the but. Okay, let's look at the sentence. I stayed up late last night and got up early this morning. There's no comma here because there's no subject after the and. Okay, now that we've talked about coordinating conjunctions, let's look at the transition or transition punctuation. Okay, in this, she injured her foot, however she would be ready for the show. Here we have a semicolon, a transition word, and a comma. And this is the way we join or make compound sentences. Again, we're joining two independent clauses. Transition words include also, moreover, besides, furthermore, however, nevertheless, nonetheless, accordingly, otherwise, finally, next, consequently, therefore, and thus. Transition phrases include as a result, for example, for instance, after all, of course, in other words, in addition, on the other hand, in contrast, on the contrary, above all, in fact, in particular, and in the meantime. Okay. Transitions and other comma rules. The transitional word or phrase at the beginning of a sentence is like an introductory fragment, except it could be a word or a phrase. So here we have, as a result, is our transitional phrase, and you notice it comes at the beginning of the sentence, so we have a comma after it. Transitional word or phrase used within a clause has commas before and after it. So here, her foot was treated for the injury, semicolon, she, comma, as a result, comma, would be ready for the show. Or she, however, had no doubts that she would be ready for the show. So again, here we have a comma before and after the however, because the however does not come at the beginning of the sentence. So this video was on the three joining commas, the introductory fragment, the coordinating conjunction, and the transition. Thank you very much.